actually, it's sort of fake. Getting off and pushing it is still very, very hard. It's just different. And that's the way I look at an epidural. Just because you get an epidural doesn't mean this process is not still very, very hard. You still have to push the baby out. Your body has to adjust to push it out. So you can stay on the bike and keep going, and that's hard, or you can get off and push, and that's hard too. So it's hard no matter what, and you just have to figure out what you want to do and why and your intentions. So that's the stuff I want you to think about when you're trying to decide if you're going to do an epidural. My way I did it in my mind was, I will get an epidural, I will entertain the idea about an epidural if I have a posterior baby, because I don't, back labor is really hard, and I don't want to have to go through that. I don't know if I can. If my labor is longer than 24 hours. Those are my two criteria that I arbitrarily set up for myself that I would entertain the idea of an epidural. Anything else was off the option. And so I at one point kind of wanted one, and I wanted my doctor to check if the baby was posterior, and she was sitting so high up in there that he couldn't even tell, because they can tell by where the fontanelle soft spot is, if it's triangular shape, and so they can feel where the fontanelle is pointing. He's like, I can't even tell which way your baby's facing, and I'm like, well, I guess I can't get an epidural because I don't know if he or she is coming out the right way. I wouldn't let myself do it. So I would, if you are on the fence, and if you're not, Katie, you're totally fine. I mean, you know what you want. But if you're on the fence, think about those things that I just talked about. It does not make it easier. It makes it different. And you don't get, the baby doesn't get relief. So try to be in tandem with your baby for this. If these are motivations for you not to get an epidural. And be very clear about those motivations when you're talking to the nurses, your doctor, especially your partner, and if you get a doula. Be very clear about those, because it does make it so much easier for everyone. And you know what? Chad's so tired of helping Monica, and it would be so easy if she just got an epidural, but I know she doesn't want one. So I'm going to keep pushing that. Because every single one of you, natural or not, it will entertain the idea, and some of you might even say it out loud, and you might say, okay, I want that epidural, and it's up to your partner or whoever else is in the room with you to challenge that. Okay? Cool? Okay, so let's move to the last pain management technique, which is general anesthesia. And basically it's just used for that real emergency C-section. By then it does not become a birth, it becomes an emergency surgery. So partner is not involved in the delivery. Partner stays out, mom is kind of conked out, and it's used to save the baby's life. That's the general anesthesia intervention that we want to avoid at all costs. Okay? Partners can be at the C-section, by the way. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm hustling through this. We're getting close. I haven't checked my time for a while. So let's talk about assisted delivery, because that's again another intervention. They can either be forceps or vacuum. Your homework between now and next week is to go to, I'll write it down, but it's a YouTube, or you can write it down actually, if you have pens. YouTube, it's a baby center video, and it talks about assisted delivery. So if you, under YouTube, you search baby center video, assisted delivery, you will see the most incredible mannequin of your life who has an actual vagina. And they show the baby coming out. It's a 5-minute program. They show it what it looks like with forceps and what it looks like with a vacuum. And I would show it here, but I don't want to take 6 minutes, which is what it was last time because I looked at the video, of trying to figure out my technology. So that's your homework, to go and check that out if you want to. So again, each provider prefers a different method, whether it's vacuum or forceps, and probably under different circumstances. It's only about 4% of deliveries end up in this assisted delivery, and it's basically just maternal exhaustion. Baby is so engaged in the pelvis that a C-section doesn't make any sense at this point, and they just help it out with the forceps or the vacuum. It is go time though. When you are told to push during your contractions and that vacuum or the forceps are on your baby's head, you're not messing around with that pushing. You only have about 4 or 5 pushing contractions that you can use to get that baby out. Partners, this is when you really come in handy, and just use what you need to. So the doctor can sound urgent, it can sound a little scary in there. It's not, it's okay, it happens, but the urgency is coming from, get this baby, you gotta about 4 or 5 contractions to get this baby out. So you gotta push, okay? Sometimes there can be, you know, like an opposite suction, like a competing vacuum. So that's why you're pushing it out too. So forceps, you'll see this on the video. The forceps are sort of the little tongs that's why I looked at my face from when I got forceps. I was a forcep baby. And then the vacuum just goes right on top of the head. And again, you don't get to pick, okay? I really like that vacuum, that's cool. No, Bowman doesn't want to do like, no, I'm a forceps lady. I don't know if she is, but I have attended a lot of births I've only seen one time that I'm doing this. So I think that, you know, about 2 to 4% is pretty accurate. An episiotomy, if anyone knows what that is, it's where the doctor will take a little, take a scalpel and make a little cut between your vagina and your perineum so that it can make more room. It is not done hardly anymore. If you have an 11-pound baby, God help you, but also that there is a chance you might need an episiotomy. It is not standard. It used to be standard, but it's not standard protocol anymore, okay? So the other thing, I always use this as an example, if we have a piece of paper that is cut with scissors versus a piece of paper that is torn, it's a lot easier for that paper to get back to, you know, to rejoin in its proper place if it's torn than if it's cut. A cut is harder for it to fuse together, okay? So you'd like to avoid an episiotomy if you can, but that's not really also your choice, you know, at that point. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about cesarean birth, and then we're going to be done, okay? So cesarean birth, some of you might know you're getting one at 39 weeks because you have a breech baby. Some of you might have 2 breech babies. And I think it's great that you're taking this class because it means that you're hopeful that you're going to be going through a vaginal delivery, which you likely will, but you know, there's a chance. So you might have a planned and scheduled cesarean delivery, or you might have to have a cesarean delivery after certain things happen in the middle of childbirth. I think it's really important either way to know why you're getting one. Are we not, what's going on, why are we talking about a C-section? I could have pushed for probably 3 more hours, but the doctor and my husband were both starting to feel like I couldn't do it. And I'm like, wait, I've only been pushing for 3.5 hours, I can still do this. But baby wasn't tolerating it real well, and they could tell I wasn't getting anywhere. So it's just good for you to know why they're talking about having one, so that you can try to avoid it. Okay, so we're talking about, okay, so I'm 38 weeks, I wonder if I can still see Kate Higgins to, you know, turn the breech baby, or something like that. So that's the first thing you need to know. Why are we talking about cesarean delivery? Once the decision to have the cesarean delivery happens, you will be moved from the labor and delivery room to the surgical unit, which is in a different part of the hospital. So you actually will move through the public part of the hospital briefly and then go to the surgical unit. Again, claim that as your space. Now, mom will get there first, and you will, if you haven't grabbed the spinal, you will get the spinal at that point. You will just sort of get prepped. Dad waits, they make dad wait a little bit. I don't know why the policy, but that seems to be the policy. Dad waits out in the hall, and while they're prepping mom, and then they call dad in. Now, as soon as dad, you get to go in, I would say do your little mantra, your little ritual, whatever it is to claim the space in the room. Again, this is going to be the first air your baby breathes, the noises, and they're playing music often because it's in surgery and they're surgeons and they're, you know, and they're used to this. But if you don't want music, don't have the music. Bring your playlist, you know, something like that. Start claiming the space in the room, even though the lights are as bright as this right here, and you were coming from your nice room where it was gentle and you had your aromatherapy. Still claim it, because it's just as important to claim that space as it was in your other space. So you will, so that room feels significantly different. It's sterile, and it's a medical thing. They're not messing around. Who is in the OR? You will have a nurse practitioner, in case there's any problems with the baby. You will have surgical team, the person who counts like all the scissors and all that stuff. They do that. You will have your whoever, whichever OB you have that's on call, who's been helping you, they will be there, but they will also have a doctor assisting, okay? So typically that will be sometimes your pediatrician. So if you're picking Dr. Niedermeyer, whoever, they will call that person to come in and help deliver. Your doctor, your OB is in charge, but they always have another doctor assisting. And that's not up to you, but it is kind of cool to know that there was always 2 doctors there. Dad is in there, but if you have mom attending the birth with you, she doesn't get to come. Really, it's only one person who can come into the OR. Now, if you have a really pushy doula, you can get that doula in there, okay? But you have to start advocating for that. If you're like, the doula's been with me for this whole time, and that anesthesiologist, because the anesthesiologist runs the show in the OR. Even your OB has to bow down to the anesthesiologist. It just changes the dynamics. You talk to the anesthesiologist. We really want Linda to be at our delivery, regardless of whether it's in the OR or in the birthing room. Can she come? And typically, if Linda has a good reputation, or if I do with that anesthesiologist, they know we're not going to faint, you can get us in. But typically, it is policy that they only have one person in there besides the patient. Okay? Mom, you're lying down on the gurney with your arms to the side, because this down here is a sterile field, and this is really awkward and uncomfortable. So you're lying here like this with supports on your arms, and they're monitoring. The anesthesiologist is right here asking how you're doing, shooting the breeze, whatever, what are you having, all that stuff. And there's a big blue drape, and on the other side of it, the doctors are delivering your baby. And you will typically get shaved, which you can smell it, and then you get cauterized, you can smell, there's just some weird smells to expect. And then you feel a lot of tugging, a lot of pressure, and then baby is born. Now, my husband is not very compliant, and he was like leaning over the drape taking pictures, which was really awesome. And I'm really glad he